So a dear friend of mine called May 28th of this year, and he asked me if I was available to help a good friend of his out. Okay, um, what can I do? It was about an hour later after that call that I was put in contact with Tamaris and on a conference call while she was out of town, and she explained what she needed. She needed somebody to evaluate a case and to basically validate the complaint.
Hi, Tony. I'm Tamaris. I'm Tamaris Henagan, and I am currently an attorney in Lenawee County, and I'm native of Lenawee County. I grew up here. I was here until I was about 16 years old when I went into the foster care system, kind of got moved all around the state, and life for me really changed a lot. I wasn't able to complete high school when I wanted to because I kept getting moved all around and I was away from family and friends and all of those things that teenagers are used to. And life took me on quite a journey where I got to learn a lot of life lessons. I got to grow a lot, but pretty much any and everything that a teenager could ever complain about, I can say been there, done that. From being in foster care to having a biological father who was a drug addict and absent from my life most of the time. Uh, cool fact, my mom's in a cult. And so that was always fun dealing with. I had a teenage pregnancy. I almost died in a drive-by when I was 18. Uh, and from there, I grew up and became a mom. I now have 9 kids in a blended family. But long before that, I went back to school, got my GED, went to college. And during college, my biological grandfather, who was my absolute hero, passed away and he left quite a legacy. And so, in that, um, I decided that it was time for me to move back to Lenawee County to help one, complete my dreams, and two, to carry on his legacy. So I moved back here in 2012 and I've been back here ever since. So about 12 years now, I've been back in Lenawee County. So, and it was my dream to become an attorney and one day a judge. So I moved back here while I was going to law school and then opened the first Black owned law firm in our county. I also was honored to become the first African American attorney ever to be sworn into the Lenawee County Bar and the first Black city attorney. And I continue to run my law practice, and now I'm the first minority to run for judge in Lenawee County. That's me. Oh, and in the meantime, I'm got 9 kids, so I stay busy. And a dash hound, which is important.
So you're talking about aspirations, and you're running for a judge, probate judge, to be
Probate
accurate.
judge.
So what happened?
So I've always wanted to be a judge ever since I was a child. In fact, the building that I'm in right now, where my law office is, I used to walk past it going to and from school every day in middle school. And it was a law office back then as well. And I would always think when I grow up, I'm going to be an attorney in a building like that. It's just something that's always been innate in me that I knew this was what I wanted to do. And I always knew I wanted to be a judge because I wanted to help people. To be honest, I always thought I would be a judge in circuit or district court because I thought that I always wanted to be involved with criminal law. And that's what my specialization was in law school. And after law school, or at the end of law school, I worked in the prosecutor's office as an intern and then went into defense work. So I just really thought criminal law was going to be my spot. But a few years ago, I had the opportunity to start doing some contract work for the public defender's office in probate court and taking on cases that were for juvenile delinquent cases and or abuse and neglect cases. So in the juvenile cases, I represent the child and help them resolve whatever trouble they've gotten into and hopefully get them back on the right path so that it doesn't impact their life for too long. In the abuse and neglect cases, I represent the parents. And I started to see that there's some flaws in our system. And there's also some parents out there that just needed some help, but really had the ability to become great parents and maybe just came from a background like me where they didn't have the examples and role models to teach them how to do that. And so the system was a way for them to get the resources they need to learn to be better parents and fix families. And then sometimes there were cases where those parents maybe can't be fixed, but those kids are in a situation like I was. And so those families still needed support so that the kids could get into a stable situation. So I started those cases, and now I also do cases where I'm a guardian ad litem for about 35 or 40 kids in Wayne County, and I get to represent the best interest of the kids. So in doing that, I realized that while I always wanted to be a judge, probate court was my passion. It was the place I could make the biggest impact because I could not sympathize with the people who are coming before that court, but I actually can empathize with them. And I think that it's really important to be able to understand the positions that they might be in and how that genuinely impacts their life if you're going to be making decisions that are life-altering decisions for them. So when I realized that that was my passion, I made the decision that probate court would be the court that I would run for. That being said, our current judge's term is up at the end of this year, and she's been on the bench for one term, which is 6 years, and it hasn't been a pleasant experience for most of us here in Lenawee County, especially in the legal profession or those who've had to work directly with the court. And so people started asking around, trying to find attorneys that were willing to run against this judge to see if we could get a change in our probate court. So not many people step to the plate. In fact, election has begun right now, and we're doing absentee ballots, and election day is November 5th, and I'm the only one who has stepped to the plate so far. So that being said, I decided to take on the challenge, and I've pursued that, and we'll see what happens at the end of this election. But it's time for a change in our particular court, and it's time for our families to get the service that they deserve. So this was the opportunity to step up and show that I'm built for this and that I can make a change in our community and bring a positive light back to probate court.
So of the entire situation here, you're running against this this judge, and there was a problem with ballots, with getting you on the ballot. And this judge has actually something to do with this.
Yeah.
Ironically enough. Let's start there. So what happened?
So actually back in October of 2023, I approached the judge privately to let her know that I was going to be putting my hat in the ring for judge this year. It's a professional courtesy that I think that was the correct and mature thing to do. So I went to her and let her know that, and her response was, good luck on your ballots. Or I'm sorry, good luck on your petitions. So petitions can't even get picked up until after the first of the year in January, but I was announcing early so that I would have plenty of time to get my campaign going. And so when January came, I picked up my ballots and we went out and collected signatures. In fact, we collected signatures during the big ice storm that we had this year when there was no electricity everywhere. So people were sitting tight because there was no electricity. So signatures were pretty easy to get. So we went out and collected all those signatures and turned them in February. And the county clerk got back to me at the beginning of March, let me know that they had validated my signatures and that I could go ahead and register with the Secretary of State to be placed on the ballot. And so we did that. And a few weeks later, we were notified by the county clerk's office that they had received a phone call. It was in April. They received a phone call stating that my petitions were going to be challenged. Now, an official challenge couldn't take place until the end of April because there are timelines within the statutes, but they were informed that a challenge would come and that this individual was going to challenge a correction that had been made at the top of my petitions. When we initially filled out all of the blank petition forms, the clerk directed us to put the November 5th date where it said election, and we did that. And the clerk later realized that that was not the correct instruction and asked us to change that date to, I believe it was August 6th for the primaries. And we did make those changes and initial those changes, even though there wasn't going to be a primary race. There was only myself and the current judge that were going to be on the ballot, but still that date had to be there in order for the petitions to be correct. So we did that under the instruction of the clerk and with their permission. So the caller said that they were going to challenge that because they challenged the clerk's authority to be able to allow changes to be made on a petition. It's my understanding that for the 15 years that clerk has been in office, they've always been told by the state of Michigan that so long as they treat all candidates equally, that if there's a mistake, they can allow those corrections so long as they would do it for any and all candidates. And that is their policy. So that's why they had allowed it. All that being said, it was about 12 days before the deadline to have nominating petitions in. And so in order to make sure that that potential challenge would not become an issue, I withdrew from the race that day and began collecting signatures again. And we corrected the form so that we would avoid any issue. And we collected another 500 and it was a 540-ish signatures, which was even more than we'd collected the first time. And we turned those in by the deadline. So we collected our signatures twice. A total of over 1,000, I believe it was, when we only need 400 signatures, 400 valid signatures to run here in Lenawee County. So they all got turned in. And as soon as the final day came that a written challenge could be filed, my opponent's brother-in-law filed a challenge and alleged 3 different things. They alleged that I had not properly withdrawn the first time, and therefore there should be some type of issue with the counting of signatures. They alleged that I had fraudulently submitted signatures, and they alleged that I forgot that I had not turned in a campaign finance report from 2021 when I ran for city commission. It was a final campaign finance report. And when you register with the clerk, you sign a document called an affidavit of identity. And on that affidavit of identity, there's a statement that says that you swear as the candidate that everything that is on that document is truthful. And it asks you, has everything been turned in for your campaign? And I had said yes, that it had, and I had signed that document. So they alleged that I fraudulently submitted a an affidavit of identity because my campaign finance form had not been turned in 2021. I had missed that and didn't even realize that it wasn't in. The clerk, the county clerk, had also missed it both times that they certified my signatures this spring. And so none of us were aware that that document was missing. In my effort to respond to that challenge, I did come across case law that back in 2022, this became an issue that many candidates were facing, and the Secretary of State was enforcing this statute very firmly. And someone else who had been running for judge took the issue to the Michigan Court of Appeals and lost that issue and was not allowed to have their name pre-printed on the ballot because they had made a mistake and thought that all of their paperwork was in when it was not. So instead of creating some big fuss and suing the county and wasting everyone's time and energy, I just chose to acknowledge that I had made a mistake and accept responsibility for that. I did get the paperwork in that needed to be in. And then I chose to take my campaign to a write-in campaign rather than just giving up and walking away and waiting 6 more years until the position came open again. So here we are running a write-in campaign. The clerk issued a letter saying that I had conceded that I had not turned in my paperwork from 2021, whether that was inadvertently, whatever, but I conceded to that, and therefore my name would not be pre-printed on the ballot, and the investigation was closed.
Okay. So who made the complaint? Who filed the complaint?
Well, the complaint was filed by a gentleman who lives in Manitoba Beach or Addison, Michigan, next door to the home that the current judge owns, next door to the house that the current judge owns, and lives in her father's home. So I'm assuming is a tenant, and he is now her brother-in-law. So she was slated to be married in July of this year, which she did get married, and this individual is her brother-in-law.
We first went and checked out the property of where the judge is supposed to be living. And honestly, it did not look like anybody lived there.
Started over there and did some driving around to assess the situation.
Snap! Ain't nobody got time for that.